What if your breath could unlock memories you didn't know you had? Hi and welcome. Today I'm going to dive into the world of breath, or the living record or codex spirals of breath, what I also like to call breath memory pathways. It's not just about breathing exercises that I'm going to be talking about today. It's about the living intelligent breath that we have, these patterns that can actually help you unlock memory, emotional integration, and energetic coherence so that you can feel more like yourself and remember who you are on a deeper level. In this video today, I'm going to explore with you what the Breath Codex Spiral is, why it's described as this toroidal spiral instead of a straight line, how it relates to your memory, emotional healing, and how you can begin to work with it in a grounded and practical way. I'm also going to broach or bridge the poetic language like field and geometry and codex with the more neurosomatic understanding of how breath shapes your state of being, your perception, and the way your experiences are stored. So let's begin. A breath codex spiral or breath memory pathway is, as I said before, a toroidal breath loop, a kind of circular self-feeding pattern that moves through your energetic field like a mirror. Instead of thinking of breath as simply in and out or up and down, we imagine it now as a looping, spiraling flow of energy, information that is constantly circulating through you. Toroidal means donut-shaped, a continuous inflow and outflow that feeds back into itself. In terms of the breath now, this points to the way the inhale and the exhale are part of this continuous loop of experience. You inhale not just air, but sensation, emotion, and subtle information. And when you exhale, it's not just carbon dioxide, but it's an expression, release, and a meaning. This breath codex spiral is not linear. It's just not inhale, exhale, and done. It spirals inwards and it spirals outwards. Waves with a loop that carry memory, emotion, and geometry, your past, your feelings, and your energy pattern. Looking at it this way, each breath is like a living code, a moving book, your personal codex system. When we use the word geometry here, we're speaking about energetic geometry, the subtle patterns or shapes in your field, how your energy is organising, how it flows, and how it arranges itself. You can imagine this as invisible lines or curves of energy that extend through and around you. Your breath is the mover and sculptor of that geometry, constantly shaping and reshaping the pattern of your field. So a breath codex spiral is a repeating, evolving breath energy pattern that both reflects, shapes how your experiences are stored in your system. It's like a spiral library made of breath. So let's talk a little bit more about why spirals are not lines. Well, most people are taught to think of breath in a linear way. Inhale, exhale, maybe a hold, but then repeat. It's like a straight line that's going backwards and forwards. Others are taught to think of breath as a box. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4, drawing a neat square around the breath. But in a breath spiral, it's understood as a looping pattern. It's not just a case of the going in and out. It is a circulating, looping, weaving through of your field. Instead of moving along a flat line or being confined to a box, the breath is travelling in a curved, continuous flow that keeps folding back into itself at a higher or deeper turn of the spiral. Spirals are fundamental shapes in our nature. We see them in galaxies, in seashells, in hurricanes, in the way our plants grow, even in the way our energy appears to move through the body. In many spiritual and esoteric traditions, a spiral describes motion that is both cyclical and evolving. It comes back around, but never exactly to the same place. There is a repetition, but there's also a progression. The breath spiral mirrors the shapes in creation and the cosmos, and therefore it is fractal, meaning the whole pattern is contained in every part, and each small loop of breath carries the imprint of the larger pattern of your life, of your field, and therefore it is holographic. The tiny breath you take in this moment can reflect the vast, multi-dimensional story of who you are, and every little spiral of breath you take is like a miniature galaxy, echoing a larger spiral of your journey. This is why a breath spiral, the concept of it, is such a powerful way to work, because when you shift your thinking from breath as linear or boxed in rigid counts and instead experience it as a living spiral, you begin to feel how each breath loop can open access to deeper layers of memory, energy, and coherence that are already encoded within you. So the Breath Codex Spiral as a mirror. The toroidal breath loop is said to move through your field like a mirror. And this is a beautiful way of saying that your breath can reflect back to you what is already inside you. Your field here is your living, felt sense, that subtle energy around you, within your body, around in your emotional atmosphere. This is your intuitive space. And when you bring awareness to your breath, it becomes a mirror for that field. You start to see default patterns. Do you hold your breath when you're scared, for example? Do you breathe only into your upper chest when you anticipate conflict? Or do you feel flattened or dull when you feel you have to endure something? Each of these patterns is like a line of code in your breath codex. The spiral breath doesn't create those patterns from nowhere. It reveals them. It shows them, and it gives them a pathway so that you can transform them. So as the breath loops through your field, it picks up information, sensations, old emotional residues or echoes, protective strategies perhaps, fragments of ancestral memory, and then it reflects back into your awareness in the form of feelings, images, body sensations, or even subtle shifts in your mood. This is what it means for the breath spiral to act like your mirror. It shows you to yourself, sometimes more honestly than your thinking mind does. And the Breath Codex Spiral is therefore both a scanning mechanism and a rewriting mechanism. Scanning your field for what is already encoded, old patterns, old stories, old shocks and surprises, and then it offers you the possibility to rewrite new lines of code through new patterns, breath attention, and giving it new meaning. So now let's go a bit deeper into the phrase carrying memory, emotion, and geometry. First, memory. The Breath Codex Spiral or breath memory pathway is deeply connected to memory, but not just the obvious mental memories like what did I do last week? It's more implicit memory, the kind of body level, emotional and energetic memory that doesn't always come with clear images or obvious intentions or narratives. You might notice that certain situations in your life instantly change your breathing. You could walk into a room in a party, for example, and your breath tightens and you don't know why. You just feel something. Or you see a certain type of person and your breath becomes shallow, perhaps. You're about to speak in public. Oh my goodness, I have that. And you find yourself holding your breath. This is your breath memory pathway activating, and your field and the whole of your body are then mirroring information back to you in a language that your mind doesn't necessarily understand in words. What you're getting is this sense or feeling on the wholeness of your body, a subtle knowing that you may not be able to put into language. That's because your field and your breath memory or breath codex system already contain that code that can show you that you've learned something before on this and it's already written into your system. And so you can think of this therefore as like living in the unconscious of subconsciousness. So on the surface you might say, I don't know why I feel this way, but your breath and your field know. And they're trying to let you know they're responding to an internal codex system, an internal pattern, saying something like, this is familiar, we've been here, we've done this, we know how to breathe in this situation to stay safe. So the Breath Codex Spiral carries these memories in its shape. Each loop of the breath reinforces and slightly updates on that memory when it lives inside you. So when you consciously enter into Breath Spiral, you can allow old memories like this to surface, not necessarily as detailed mental movies, but as feelings or sensations or sudden meaningful shifts that gently re-encode them in a different breath pattern. Second, let's address emotion. Every core emotion tends to come with its own breath signature. Fear often shows up as fast, high, shallow breathing. Grief may arise like deep sighs and collapses. On the other hand, anger might be sharp, forceful, sometimes with breath holding too. Peace and contentment, though, they often come with slower, smoother and more spacious breathing. Over time, these pairings become a kind of inner code, a mapping breath pattern to an emotional state. When your breath codex spiral runs in a certain pattern, it tends to evoke corresponding emotional states and vice versa. In this way, breath and emotion aren't separate. They're part of the same spiraling pattern. Third, let's address the idea of geometry with the breath. Here we're talking about geometry being energetic, the shape and flow of your field, different states, different energetic shapes. Some feel contracted and spiky, others feel open and spherical, others feel like waves or currents. Your breath is constantly sculpting these shapes, and these shapes in turn influence your breath, your mind, your behaviour, your emotion. You can imagine that every repeated emotional energetic pattern lays down a kind of geometric imprint then into your field. The Breath Codex Spiral moves through this geometry like a wave passing through a complex three-dimensional lattice. And as it passes through, it can either reinforce the existing pattern or gently reshape it, depending on how you breathe, with awareness or not, where you place your awareness. So when you say that the breath spiral carries memory, emotion and geometry, what we mean is it is a moving interface that connects what you have lived with what you feel and how your energy organises in real time. So let's break down how a single breath cycle or a breath codex spiral works. We can describe this in 4 phases: the inhale, the hold, the exhale, the pause. And we'll layer the spiral over the language so you can feel the deeper pattern. Phase 1. Inhale, you're entering the codex field. On the inhale, the breath enters your field. You're drawing energy inward, but you're also drawing awareness inward. As air moves through into the spiral, things begin to activate, and this is the receptive phase. You're opening, taking in not just oxygen, but sensation, subtle cues, and whatever is present in your field right now. Phase 2 is the hold, forming that spiral loop. In the gentle hold, which can be very short and relaxed, the breath forms a spiral loop, and this is where the codex starts to become visible. The hold is not about force or strain, it's about a moment of suspended movement where information can circulate within the field, and in this pause you may become aware of what your breath has picked up: tension, emotion, memory fragments, energetic textures or landscapes. Phase 3, the exhale. That's the releasing of the memory and the distortion. So on the exhale, the spiral breath moves outwards. This is the phase of release and expression. And here is where you can let go of what no longer needs to be held in the same way. Memory and distortion doesn't just mean forgetting about events, by the way. It can mean allowing outdated interpretations or stuck meanings or emotional charge or misaligned patterns to just move through, soften and exit. Sometimes that can look like a physical sigh, a sound, a tear, or something emptying. And phase 4, recalibrating your field. So at the end of the exhale, there is another pause, and this is the recalibration phase. And in this stillness, your field reorganizes itself around the new information. You've released something, and now the geometry adjusts. The spiral has completed one loop, and now it's ready to begin another, but with slightly updated conditions. This entire 4-phase process is the breath spiral geometry, the living shape of your breath as it moves through and reshapes your field. When you repeat this cycle with awareness, it becomes a codex, a dynamic, evolving library of how you meet experience. So what might you experience being aware of your breath memory spiral? As we begin to work with Breath Codex Spirals, you may notice a range of experience, and all of these are natural and are welcomed as long as you stay within your window of tolerance and don't force the breath, don't force anything, in fact. So you may experience emotional release. Waves of sadness may come over you, or anger, or relief, or joy. Tears may come, or you might find yourself laughing, shaking, yawning, sighing, feeling sleepy. These are the ways that your field discharges old charge and rebalances you. And you may notice memory flashes, quick images, bits of scenes, phrases, or even clear knowing that this is about an old situation. Sometimes you'll remember something specific, and at other times it's more abstract. A sense of an old pattern moving to the surface, perhaps, without a clear story. This can happen. Both kinds are valid. You may feel a deep calm and a stillness and a sense that your system is settling and that your awareness is becoming more spacious and less entangled in your old stories. There can be moments where your inner world feels very quiet, very clear, almost as if the field is simply resting in itself. And you may also notice more subtle things like kundalini, tingling, warmth, waves of energy moving through your body, shifts in your sense of boundaries, or moments of expanded perception. And these are signs that your energetic geometry is adjusting and that your personal codex is being rewritten. When I say this is your field remembering itself, what I mean by this is it's returning to a more coherent, natural organization. You're not forcing yourself into a new shape. You're allowing yourself, or you're allowing deeper intelligence to reorder itself through the guidance that your breath is giving you. For those of you who like to link the mystical side with the more grounded or modern approach to understanding breath memory pathways, also have a nervous system perspective. Your breathing is intimately connected with your autonomic nervous system state, your fight, flight or freeze, your rest and your repair. And over your lifetime, your system has learned certain pairings, particular breath patterns linked to particular emotional states and interpretations. These are your breath memory pathways on a physiological level. The idea of the toroidal breath spiral maps surprisingly well into the way your system constantly cycles through states, receives sensory input, evaluates it, and responds. Each loop of the cycle lays down a pattern, and this kind of situation means this kind of response. Your breath, therefore, is woven into that pattern, and when you consciously enter a breath spiral, you are gently altering the timing, the rhythm, and the tone of this cycle. You're sending different signals through your nervous system. So in energetic language, we'd say you're shifting the geometry of your field. In somatic language, we'd say you're repatterning your response pathways. The beauty of the idea of the codex metaphor is that it reminds you that these patterns are not fixed. They're written in a living, editable script or piece of code, and breath is one of the main ways you can write new chapters for yourself, for your state, your emotion, and your life. So let's outline a simple practice you can try after this video, if you like, to begin working with your own breath with the idea of the codex spiral. And so this is not going to be about forcing dramatic experiences. It's about gently meeting yourself through your breath, where you are. Step 1, choose a pattern. Bring to mind a recurring situation that activates you. It could be social anxiety, performance pressure, conflict, or even a vague sense of not being safe. You're not diving into the story in detail, you're just acknowledging it. Saying, like, for example, this is my pattern, my system knows. Step 2, notice your default breath. And as you think about the situation, pay attention to your breath. Does it become shallow? Does it hold? Does your chest tighten? Does your throat constrict? This is one of your existing breath memory pathways, part of your current codex. Step 3, enter into the spiral. Now gently shift into a more coherent breath spiral. Breathe through the nose if that is comfortable. So let's outline a simple practice you can try after this video, and you can begin working on your own breath codex spiral. And this won't be about forcing anything dramatic. It's about gently meeting yourself through your breath and how you find yourself today. So step 1 would be to choose a pattern in your life. Bring to mind a recurring situation that activates you. It could be social anxiety, performance pressure, some kind of conflict, or even a vague sense of feeling unsafe. You're not going to dive into the detail here. You're just going to acknowledge this is a pattern that my system knows. Okay. Step 2, notice where you find your breath today. So as you think about this situation, this pattern, pay attention to your breath. Does it become shallow? Do you hold it? Does your chest tighten? Or does your throat constrict? This is one of your existing breath memory pathways and part of your current codex. The next step is where you enter the spiral. Now gently shift into a more coherent breathing. Breathe through the nose if that's comfortable for you, inhaling softly and allowing that breath to expand, not just from the front of your body, but also from the sides and the back of your rib cage, as if your breath is moving out in all 4 directions. At the top of your inhale, pause for a brief, relaxed moment, just enough to sense the field. Feel that the breath is circulating, not stuck. And then exhale a little longer than you inhaled, smooth and steady, as if your breath is flowing out in a spiral around you, carrying old tension and outdated codes with it. And at the bottom of the exhale, pause again for a moment. Sense your field, recalibrating, reorganizing, and then begin with the next inhale. Step 4, bring gentle awareness to what arises as you repeat this spiral for several minutes. Notice what comes up. Feelings, images, sensations, memories, symbols, or something like a deeper calm. You don't have to chase or analyze anything. Let the breath do the work. Feel the presence of it. Feel it moving and integrating. And you can silently affirm something like, I allow my field to remember. Or I allow my codex, my field to update. The next step. Close with gratitude and grounding. After a few minutes of doing the breath, feel that wave of completion and let that breath return to normal. Sense your body, the whole of your body, your seat, your feet on the ground, and offer that gratitude to your breath and to the part of you that is ready to remember in a new way. So practicing this over time, the simple spiral begins to make new lines, a new codex and a new life, new themes, and a new different internal way of making new geometry and a different way of remembering your path and a different way of reacting or responding. Ultimately, working with Breath Codex Spirals is not about having exotic experiences or a perfect technique. It's about your relationship with your own field, your own aura, your own energy body and your own history and your own living intelligence. Each breath spiral is an invitation to meet old patterns with new breath, to let your memory surface in a way that can be held, witnessed, and then transformed, and to allow your energy geometry to shift from fragmentation into coherence, from confusion into clarity. You are not using breath to become someone else. You are using breath to remember yourself more fully, who you really are. And the codex is not being written from outside of you, it is being revealed from within you. Breath by breath, spiral by spiral. If this resonates with you, I invite you to stay connected. In an upcoming live session, we'll explore a guided Breath Codex Spiral practice together. We'll step into the mirror of breath through the toroidal spiral as a group field and give our systems space to remember themselves in new ways. So if you feel called to unlock this deeper kind of memory or knowing within yourself and to integrate your old emotions and experiences with your breath as a living, intelligent geometry, make sure you're subscribed, turn on the notifications, and join me for that live breath spiral session. Until then, notice your breath, notice its loops, think of its spirals, and the idea of the codex, the little codex entries that happen throughout your day. And remember that every breath is a chance to write a new line of your story of who you are. Thank you for being here.